It is episode 10 of At the Movies with Lo&Mo. It is the last episode of the season. But don't fret because there is no break. There's no stopping this train. We've got a brand new season up and we're going to coming up and we're going to talk about that at the end of this episode. But today you're talking about a movie that I have been waiting to see.
And a movie I've seen 5
viewing.
times already.
Yep. It is Martin Scorsese's 1990 film, Goodfellas. I want to get your history on this first because, as you said, you've seen this movie multiple times.
Mhm.
You are a little bit more of a mob movie connoisseur than myself.
Easy.
Me? Talking to me?
Jeez, the FBI's got this thing tapped here, bud. You're gonna get me. You're gonna get me pinched. What are you, some kind of rat? Jeez.
Never.
Nothing's sacred anymore.
So tell me about like the first time you saw this, or and then like how did it become? Is it a comfort movie for you? I mean, like what appeals to you about this film?
It definitely became a comfort movie for me over time. I don't think when I first watched it that I really thought it was a comfort movie. I can't remember the exact year when I watched it, but it was on Netflix for a while, probably maybe like 2013, even way before that, probably like 2011. I think I was still living in Bradford at the time. And I just was like, you know what? I've always heard good things about this movie. I'm going to throw it on. And I did. And I absolutely loved the movie. I remember from the first time. And then throughout, like, I've just watched it a couple more times with other people. And when we were I was up in Canada and that was playing on like the Airbnb TV. And I watched it like for the 4th time. And this was the 5th time. Watched it at my mom's house late at night, and she comes downstairs like right at one of the scenes where like they're getting shot up, and she's like, "What are you watching, sweet? What is this?" And I was like, "Oh, it's Goodfellas," and she's like, "Okay." I think it's going to be a tradition for me to watch it every year right before my birthday. I think that's going to be my new tradition.
Hell yeah!
I'm going to watch Goodfellas.
That rules. And
I'm so happy, man, that we finished our season 1 on such a high note. At least I think. I'm so excited to get your viewpoint on it. I know a lot of times I start out with first because it's our first time watching the movies together, but I am so excited to dive in to what you thought about this movie because this movie means so much to me. And I'll wait till the end to say where my rankings are.
I'm sorry, my cat also loved the film and was dying to get a word in. There's a podcast I love that I listen to called Doughboys, and one of the first things that I heard about Goodfellas that it piqued my interest was one of the hosts of that film, or one of the hosts of that podcast, was talking about food films. And this isn't specifically a food film, but food is kind of always in the background.
Mm-hmm.
There's a large focus on it, and of course that goes hand in hand with this Italian American sentiment of like cooking and home cooking and family and eating with family. But it is always kind of happening. There's the scene in prison where they talk about the guy who slices the garlic so thin that
that's like the most memorable scene in that movie is that garlic getting shaved with that razor blade. That's like, if you talk anybody, with Goodfellas, they're going to be like, oh, the garlic scene.
Yep. And then also him having his brother he's on the phone, he's all coked out, and he's saying, make sure the sauce doesn't stick. Make sure he's stirring it. And he's like, I'm stirring it.
He's got his hands and everything, just flopping it around. He's putting the cutlets in the breading and just throwing it down. His hands are just in everything. He's making the meatballs as he's going out the door, checking for the helicopter, man. It was just, I love this movie.
So it really is kind of again, like not explicitly a food movie, but I love the representation of like what that again, it's a culture thing. Like this movie does a lot to show it's not just a mob movie, but it is a movie about growing up as an Italian American. It spans 1955 through 1980, I believe. So you really get a sense for like what's important to these people, and food and family and dining with family is one of those things.
Yeah.
It's also very interesting because I just finished The Sopranos. We talked a little bit about this on the podcast. Shooting the Bit, out now. Go check that out after you watch this. But there are 3 cast members. There may be more, but there's 3 that I noticed that are in this film. Lorraine Bracco plays Karen. She is the therapist from The Sopranos. Amazing performance. Her and Ray Liotta were definitely standouts for me in this. We've got Michael Imperioli as Spider, the ill-fated
R.I.P. Spider. R.I.P. Spider.
busboy kind of type that doesn't get Tommy his drink fast enough and tells him to fuck himself. And then we've got the guy that plays Phil. And let me check his name real quick.
Frank Vincent.
Frank Vincent. Phil Leotardo in The Sopranos, and in this, Jimmy Batts.
Billy
Jimmy
Batts.
Batts?
Billy Batts.
Billy Batts.
Billy Batts.
Billy Batts.
Billy Batts. Not
he
to
is
be confused with
dispatched
Billy Mays. Billy Batts, not Billy Mays.
Billy Batts here.
Billy Batts here with another wacky session.
We've got some great cocaine to sell you.
Billy Batts just out of prison here.
I guess my take and what I like about this movie for sure. And it's so nice that this is the last movie we're watching, because I think it ties right back into where we started with Scorsese. Mean Streets was the first movie we watched of his. And then past Mean Streets, Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore. Another film that when we reviewed it, we talked about how that movie feels like it is a snapshot of someone's life.
Mhm.
Like it starts in one place and it ends in another, and it covers a wide span of time. And I love the way that this film covers time. Like I love that this is again, it spans like 25 years of someone's life.
Yep. And it hooks you the whole way through.
It's almost episodic
Yeah.
in that way. It's different sections of this person's growing up in the mob and the lessons they're learning and the choices they're making. I like that it is episodic like that. I like that it spans this person's lifetime. I also did some reading on the production, and I think what's really interesting is when Scorsese was making this, he wanted to capture the energy of a movie trailer. Like a 2.5-hour movie trailer. And he
Mhm.
said like the idea is that these guys, their lives don't stop. Like it is like a mile a minute, always something going on. They're always juggling operations in the air. And the best way to capture that is this kind of punk rock style of editing where he said he approached it the same way the gangsters would approach something in real life, where it's like, oh, is too much narration? Too bad. Are the fast cuts too much? Oh well, that's what I want. So it's just this. It's really him. Like I think that is probably part of the reason it is one of his hallmark films, and part of the reason people recognize this as maybe the Scorsese film is that it is him doing exactly what he wants. Like it like to the point where it is almost less methodical. It's almost less like things are exactly technically the way they need to be or are supposed to be. It is him literally letting loose and just taking every lesson he's learned up to that point and just having fun making this film. You can feel him having fun with this film and the characters.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting that you bring this up, because when you think of Scorsese, when you do his whole entire filmography, what he's known for is like the tactician of film. Like he's so just down to the details of where like a cup is placed, to like just like the nuance of like an accent. He is so hypercritical of everything he does that like one of his best films is very technical, but he almost was like, I'm doing this whatever I want. And he kind of like, it's super technical. This film, don't like get me wrong, this film is super technical with its shots and its writing and the way he introduces music. I mean, this film is like pretty much, because I took his master class, and like everything that he talks about is what you need to be a good filmmaker is shown in this movie, from his way of using music for those shots to the way he like does the cutaway scenes and just everything. And how when he was filming this, when they were doing the rehearsals, he would just let them kind of like go off. And then if Scorsese was like, oh, I really like this line, or, the actors would improvise, he would rewrite the script and then reintroduce that into the final film. The scene where Pesci's character there is like, yelling at Henry about him being a funny guy, that was actually a fully improvised scene.
So great that you mentioned the music, because there's a part of this that I caught that I love. It has to be deliberate. I feel like almost positive. It is when we start to transition into the cocaine era of Henry's life. Um, it is Christmas time, and as this operation is starting, the music that's playing is all of the songs are about snow. It's like Let
Mhm.
It Snow and all this stuff. It feels so deliberate to me that the environment, is reflecting what's going on in his internal life.
What were your thoughts on like the drug era?
Again, it's interesting because coming off of The Sopranos, you are watching in that series, you're following around the boss of a family and you are watching them make decisions. And in this, it's almost as if you were it's almost as if The Sopranos was about Chrissy or something.
Mhm.
Like you're following around someone that is working their way, up to something. And also he deliberately ignores Polly's, he disobeys Polly by doing the drug stuff. And so I admired, weird word to use for somebody who's peddling cocaine, but I admired seeing this character say, I'm going to do what I'm going to do. Like, this is my way forward almost.
Yeah, because it's really
Um,
frowned upon, like in a lot of these like mobster films or anything, and like the actual culture of like the mob, like the drug selling, everything is like a real frowned upon. Like it's strange, but they're like, no, that's where they draw the line. They don't really like to. As you get higher up, they don't like to deal out with the drugs, but they're fine with getting the money as long as they don't know where it comes from. But they're like,
Kill a
nah.
guy, we'll talk about it.
Yeah,
Cocaine, no way. Absolutely not. They are, it's a bunch of mobsters in like Dare shirts. And they're like, we'll whack a guy, but don't you go around smoking that funny lettuce of yours.
mobsters against drugs. It's mad. Instead of the mothers against drunk drivers, it's just the mobsters against drugs.
There's a bit there. I like that. Yeah, and I think I have to reflect on, and without going too Sopranos heavy, I just have to say that like the end of that show has been weighing on my mind a lot because it is very, in my opinion, nihilistic, the way the show ends and the way it portrays the characters and how bleak it is. And it is somebody kind of saying like, this is the life I was born into. This is who I am. I couldn't change it if I want to. Whether or not that's true, up to interpretation. But what was interesting about this is that it just kind of cemented in my mind the way this film ends, the trajectory of this film, and him eventually going into witness protection and ratting out Jimmy, and Paulie. It really does feel like mob life is the ultimate deal with the devil. And that's like kind of the point, is that you get everything you want. Anything
Mhm.
you could ask for. I mean, he has this great monologue, and there's an amazing moment too that really I wasn't expecting. It blew me away when he is in court and he gets up and breaks the fourth wall and
Yeah.
directly addresses the camera. Um, Talks about how you could have everything you could ever want, but the flip side of this, and it's touched upon a bunch in that last season of The Sopranos, is that like you could go at any time and you would never know.
Nothing's
Your
guaranteed,
life
but
could end at
everything's
any time.
guaranteed. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's
Yep.
so
It is
crazy.
high risk, high reward. Yeah.
I started watching these like mob films as I've gotten older in life. It wasn't something that I watched when I was younger because I think like a lot like my family as far as like weren't really into like watching the mob films and stuff like that. And I think you see that like most like Italian American families don't really like the way that like they're portrayed in these films. But I kind of grew up now that I watch those in like kind of like my 20s. I started watching these mob films and stuff, and it's kind of like a glorified look at it. And it's kind of like when you sit back and you go, oh, that like that would not be fun. And I know I'm gonna get slapped when I go home next for even saying that,
Right.
but you kind of do. A lot of these films make it glamorous, but in like the true reality of it, only like 10% of it's glamorous. Like only if you're at the upper echelon of these, these families, these like runners and associates at the bottom are living these like just scraping by, doing everything they can, selling drugs, robbing people, doing
You're a
heists.
fighter.
Yeah.
How easy would it be to get entangled in this lifestyle and to think that you have a shot at making it to that upper 10%? and winding up like somebody like Spider,
Yeah, and I
and
think
winding up getting shot for saying the wrong thing to the wrong person.
that there's a lot more spiders, but we, in these mob films, you only see like these top end guys.
I think some other performance stuff. Oh, and I guess I should mention too that I am not. Earlier, when I was talking about Italian American culture, I know that not every Italian American family in America has some kind of mob tie. Or it's like I don't go over to Jimmy's house to meet his parents, and I'm like, so.
So, did you guys watch Goodfellas?
Yeah,
Any Goodfellas in this family?
I'm looking to get back in business. I'm looking for a little. You kick up to me. No. That would be a very funny bit though. Somebody who thinks that every single Italian American person has some kind of connection. Or would it just be xenophobic? I don't know.
I don't know either. I don't.
Find out on Shooting the Bit, which will be recorded right after this.
Right after this.
Ray Liotta and Lorraine Bracco's performances were my favorite. They were my standout performances. I also love the technique of having him narrate for a while and then switching to her perspective and having her narrate for a while. Really, really enjoyed that. But the more I think about it too, it is very interesting, and it goes to show his talent that De Niro has almost kind of a restrained role here.
Yeah.
Like he's a lead, he's a star. I mean, he's a lead, but he is not necessarily in the forefront the way that he has been in past Scorsese films.
Mhm.
And he executes his role perfectly. He doesn't take up too much room, but he does what he
Yeah.
does well, and it's really great.
Yeah,
I
I
have
really
to
like
ask
his role.
you. I got two questions for you.
Okay.
One is, am I supposed to hate Pesci's character?
Yeah.
Because I do.
Yeah, I also, after, I don't know if I've always felt this way, but after this time of watching it, I was like, he was just insufferable. I was like, I can't take him for a second. And then I know that he's getting whacked. Like I know that
Right.
scene is coming, and I was like, let's speed this up. Like I'm ready. I am ready for him to just get whacked at this point, because it's like he's such a wild card in like the worst possible way of that. In that word. And even when Henry gets out of jail, he's talking to Paulie, and he's like, you can't trust Tommy. And so if you watch this film the first time, and like, correct me if I'm wrong on this, and from your perspective. So we see Paulie say, don't trust Tommy, like, at all. And then later on, you see, oh, Tommy's getting made. Paulie's making him a made man. And you're like, wait a second. Paulie can't stand him at all. And then all of a sudden they walk him in and they whack him right there in that house, for killing Billy Batts, who was, a made man, which is completely frowned upon.
I think it was ironic. He says when he kills Jimmy Batts, he says, let me shoot him in its big fat fucking mouth. And his character, by far, Tommy, has the biggest mouth in the film. That's like his whole thing, is that he is a loose cannon. He's like Paulie from The Sopranos, but on steroids. He just talks. People love it, or they act like they love it, whatever. So I think it's almost ironic that he kills somebody and claims like he's got this big mouth and he can't shut up or whatever, when he is the person that does himself in. And I'll tell you what, I did not see him getting whacked coming. But there was definitely a part of me that was like, it made sense when it happened, because I explained that Henry and Jimmy couldn't be made men because they both had Irish genes. And aside from that, there is no reason Tommy would be a made man. Like, there's nothing outside of the fact that he is Italian.
Mm-hmm.
There is nothing that would, tell you that like he is even.
Yeah, he's definitely not somebody that gets made, and it's just like, no.
Right. This is the only thing I'm hung up on, and I don't even think it's a bad thing. I think it's just something that I have to chew on for a while. And my question is like, what do you make of the ending? Because I feel like the idea of this film is that, like I said, I think the idea is that mob life it's just kind of showing you that this is the ultimate deal with the devil, and that you can have it all and potentially lose everything, and you have to make those choices. At the end of the film, Karen seems upset that they have to go into witness protection and she might not see her parents, and it's this big uprooting and everything. But for being a rat, it seems like Henry is not too upset with his lifestyle at the end of the film. He says something about how I got to live the rest of my life like like a schmuck, and then he kind of I thought maybe I'm making this up in my head, but it seemed like he like goes out to get the paper and he seems like pretty happy,
Well,
you
I don't
know, and
know if he's
it seems like
happy.
a weird.
I don't I don't know if he's happy, but like so I guess so I think the reason why I like the ending is because it touches on him in that courtroom scene. And there's a different school of thought here. This isn't like official, but the reason why there's like Henry is talking over the film and like you kind of hear Karen at times is because that's them talking to the FBI. Like they're telling the story through like the FBI eyes is kind of
Oh
why.
wow,
So like when it comes, it
I
comes,
didn't even think about that.
yeah. So it comes full circle there at the end when he's like at the courtroom, like finishing up his story. So it ties the whole thing together. But I mean, if you were Henry, so let's take it as like a personal thing here. If you knew that either A, you had three, I guess only three options. One, you're going to prison for the rest of your life. You're never going to see
You're probably
your
gonna die.
you're
Gonna get whacked.
yeah, you're probably going to get whacked in prison. That's pretty obvious. Paulie's coming for you. There's no doubt. And Paulie's got men in there, guaranteed. Two, you get out of your trial and you're a free man as far as the court's going. Guess what? Paulie and Jimmy are going to be coming right after you, guaranteed.
Right.
Just because of the fact that you were like, you might have talked to at the FBI. I mean, they were in deep at this point. You talk about that like millions of dollar heist that they did. And Paulie is so determined to like, I'm not living the rest of my life in jail, which he ends up doing. He ends up dying in jail. The real Paulie Cicero dies in jail. So
That scene alone too, not to interrupt you, but that scene alone where Jimmy, before we even know that he's considering whacking Henry, when he meets with Karen and he gives her the money and then he says like go get some of these dresses or whatever,
Mhm.
and she like makes her way all the way down the street corner and it's a bad feeling, is such a tense and dark scene. I thought it was really effective.
yeah. So I guess, since it's a true story or truer story, I'm pretty happy with the way it ended. I mean, I don't think he had any other
Yeah.
choice. Of course he's happy. He's not dead. He's living his life as I think his name ended up being like Alex Carnelli or something like that. I read up on Henry Hill before this. Also, too, a good interesting fact. They paid the actual Henry Hill $480,000 like ahead as an advance for this film. So talk about getting your last cut of a big job there, man. $480,000. Right. Hell yeah. Ray Liotta was getting into his character training. He actually met with Henry Hill, but the city was never disclosed where they met. So he actually met to like really get to know him and become him. And I was like, imagine being in the witness protection program and they're like, hey, we're making a film about you. We're going to give you $480,000. And he's like, all right. And he's like, by the way, Ray Liotta's coming to hang out for a weekend. And he's like, all right.
As long as he doesn't use that money to buy any fancy cars or mink coats, he should be fine. You know? I don't have any complaints about the ending. I think it's just one of those things where I think if it wasn't a true story, there would maybe be a little bit more like irony put into like the ending might go a different direction. But because it's a true story, and also just because this is the first time I'm seeing it, I think it's just something I need to chew on a little bit. But man, the other thing I will say is this movie flew by. We watched Passion of the Last Temptation of Jesus. Literally. We watched The Last Temptation of Christ 2 weeks ago. And that movie was probably 10 to 20 minutes longer. I would say 20 minutes longer than this movie. And it felt like an all-day venture. This movie is 2 hours and 25 minutes long. And it really just felt like it flew by.
Yeah, because it's like you're so invested by the time it even gets to like the first hour. This honestly could have been a 6-hour film, or it could have been a TV series. Guess what? You're binging it all because you want to know what happens to Henry, and you want to know like everybody in that family. You are so invested, and that's a mark of a good story. Is when you're that invested. Hey, that's a well done film or a well done book.
It makes me very excited for the future when we inevitably return to what's up, Ripley? Um, it makes me very excited for the future when we inevitably return to David Cronenberg and Martin Scorsese to tackle the second half of their careers because it just makes me curious to see how The Irishman, handles its runtime and how Martin Scorsese continues to grow within the genre.
Mhm. Can I ask you a question that we didn't talk about, but it's interesting because this whole thing is about what we can do better as in our own business as filmmakers ourselves. But what are two to three things that you either learned from Scorsese or Cronenberg that that whenever that we make a film, there's going to just be a little mark on there. It's going to be like Cronenberg, or a little mark that was like, oh, that was like a little taste of Scorsese. Whether it's writing, film, like what are some things that you think?
I think immediately the first thing that I think is that it is unofficial that we focused on one director that was kind of in the horror genre mostly, and one director that was in like the drama field specifically, because here we see two different kinds of movies that can both be very successful, and it is going to be eventually up to us and what script we're producing to make sure that it is executed properly. So for example, this is a movie that is 2 hours and 25 minutes long, and there is a lot of emphasis on dialogue and the characters, and the things that make the gears turn is like the relationships and the interactions between characters. Now take that and compare that to a movie like The Fly, where The Fly is an hour and a half, no filler, and this film doesn't have any filler either. It's like The Fly, it is smart to know that this movie, why people want to watch this movie, it is 90 minutes in and out. It is less about the characters specifically and more about this transformation, this horrific thing that's happening. It is meant to disturb and shock audiences and make them think. It is trying to execute something different than a drama film would. So I think that that's the first thing, is that like thinking just about what the intention of our film is at any given time and how do we execute that most efficiently.
Nice.
Seeing Scorsese, this was more apparent with Scorsese than Cronenberg. Like seeing Scorsese, pizza rolls are done. Mom,
My pizza.
I'll try to keep this quick because I don't want to ramble too much. I think seeing Scorsese get comfortable we move through his films and learn something from each of his productions, and get to the point where he's comfortable enough trying new things, and you start to see these shots. Like I remember the very first one, and it was in Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore. There was a shot, like a tracking shot, that was like going in circles around. I think she was like at a piano.
Mhm.
Seeing that, and then seeing later uh in The Last Temptation of Christ, seeing the camera being attached to the back of the cross as it's lifted, just seeing him get comfortable enough with trying new things and like really experimenting, um that is inspiring. That's something I pull away. And Cronenberg, again, kind of almost an opposite, not an opposite thing, but what I would take away from him is we said about almost all of the movies that we watched of his. There's a couple exceptions, but his movies have a very cohesive feel throughout all of them. They
Yeah.
all feel, even if you take away the body horror and all that stuff, they feel cold. They take place in these environments that kind of just let you know that this is a Cronenberg film.
Mhm.
So I think there is something valuable there too, to having these kind of hallmarks and these kind of trademark styles that let people know that this is something that you made. You know?
Hell yeah.
Do you have anything to add? Is there anything
Yeah,
that stood out for you?
I guess the two things that I'm definitely taking away, or maybe even three, we'll see how this goes, is one is always be think of these different ways that you can work on these camera angles or the way that you transition between scenes. And be okay with taking a little creative licensing with things just to see how it works. Let your actors and the people involved in the film have full input. So it's like more of you know, a collective, like versus no, well, this is my film, this is my way, and just write and direct and produce what you truly love to do. Yeah, at the end of the day, that's why we do this. That's why we do this show. It's why we do Shooting the Bit. It's why we do all of our stuff, because we have a vested interest in it. It's stuff that we love. It's stuff that we like to watch. So as long as you're doing that, I think you're on the right track.
Love doing the show, and I'm excited to keep doing it. And I think that's a perfect segue. Let's get our rankings in on Goodfellas, and then let's do a quick before we announce next season's directors and films. Let's do a quick top 5 of the 10 films that or of the 20 films rather.
Okay.
No, 10. Let's do a top 5 of the 10 films that we watched over the past 10 weeks.
Well, I'm going to be completely transparent. Goodfellas is on my top 5 films of all time, so it should be no surprise that Goodfellas coming in at the last minute, the end of season 1, as my number 1 film, my number 1 Scorsese film. Goodfellas, number 1 spot. I always thought that would be the case, and here we are sitting at the end of season 1, and I'm like, I was right.
I gotta say, I'm a little worried about this. I'm a little worried about how this is going to be received, because I very much enjoyed this movie. I don't even think I have anything to complain about with this movie. When I'm ranking these, I'm kind of thinking about like what like interested me most, or what caught me, what's gonna keep me thinking after I watch.
I swear to God, I'll whack you if this is really bad.
It's not really bad. This is going to be number 6 in my ranking. Listen.
What?
The reasoning, it's a great film. The reasoning is that I went into this film with a lot of hype, and it is perfectly rated. It's not underrated. It's not overrated. It is just a solid. It's just built like a brick shit house. Like it is Scorsese firing on all cylinders. It is just a solid film. I think it's a better film than After Hours. However, the reason it would come in after a film like After Hours on my ranking is that After Hours was such a bizarre and one of a kind experience that I would be more interested today if you were like, I mean, I guess I just watched Goodfellas. This is no surprise. But if somebody said, you want to watch After Hours or do you want to watch Goodfellas? I'd be interested in watching After Hours again, just because I want to chew on it some more, because it's a weird movie. So it has less to do with the quality and more just about like, yeah, it's a great movie. What else do you want from it? Top 5 of all of the films that we watched this season. Jimmy, after you, my friend, take us through start with number 5 and take us to your number 1.
Number 5 coming in, David Cronenberg's The Fly. Jeff Goldblum, wonderful performance, excellently written, directed. Can't say enough about this movie. Lower on my Cronenberg list, but when I think of like all of these movies and how they actually impacted me at the end, I think The Fly is coming in at number 5. Number 4 in the low rankings is going to be a bizarre but yet intriguing film, After Hours by Martin Scorsese. Really enjoyed this film, and I just liked how it was just a complete just mess, and you did not know where you were going from start to finish.
Ride.
Number 3, a ride of a film, a thriller, one that I draw a lot of inspiration from as far as the way that the ending goes, because you really don't know. Taxi Driver, Martin Scorsese, my 3rd film. Number 2, a David Cronenberg classic, body horror, a Videodrome. Thought that movie was excellent. That was my number 1 Cronenberg from the ending here. And coming in at the number 1 spot, no surprise, the best movie ever made, Goodfellas, baby.
Fast Company?
Good.
Is it Fast Company?
Raging Bull.
Coming in at number 5, might be blasphemous, because I know that Goodfellas is clearly a mob movie when it comes to Scorsese and mob movies in general. Mean Streets. Think about it all the time. It was my first introduction to Scorsese, and something about I guess I didn't know what to expect going into it, and what I left with was just a film that was funny and interesting and stuck with me. And I think not having expectations going into it really just like made it stick.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great movie, absolutely phenomenal movie.
So Number 4, we watched it last week. It is not directed by Cronenberg or by Martin Scorsese. It is Chris Smith's documentary American Movie.
Hey, you cheated.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a cheat, but we talked about how anytime we're in a rut, we might fire this puppy up and watch a little bit of it, and I think both as inspiration as a filmmaker and as a film itself, it just works.
Yeah.
Great character study, great inspiration. Makes me want to work harder and make cool things.
100%.
That's at number 4. Number 3, my favorite Scorsese film, Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore.
Nice.
Different than a lot of his catalog, but as a drama, it feels like a precursor to Goodfellas, like I said, in the sense that it is spanning this section of this woman's life. I think it was very interesting to have him, so many mob movies are so masculine and it's just there's a lot of men at the forefront of these films. So I think to see him tackle a woman's life, especially in the time period that it was done, and to tackle things like abuse, I think it was just out of his wheelhouse in the best way. And that's something that always inspires me when someone's able to knock something out of the park and that is maybe not what they're known for. Number 2, matching your number 2, Videodrome.
Nice.
I think Videodrome is the Cronenberg movie that I would show somebody. If somebody was like, I want to watch David Cronenberg, I'd probably be like, oh, have you seen The Fly? And if they were like, no, like, I want to see some weird shit, I'd be like, all right, watch Videodrome. It is like quintessential Cronenberg, the body horror, the surreal, dreamlike quality of it all, nightmare-like quality of it all. Yeah, it's unforgettable. And I think I take something different away from it every time I watch it. The number 1 film is David Cronenberg's The Brood. It is similar to Goodfellas for you. It is a top 10 film for me of all time. Probably a top 5 horror film for me. It's weird. There's little troll people being born out of some lady's hack or so whatever. I mean, it's brought on by therapy. It's just another. It's essential Cronenberg. It's combining the mental and the physical into something that is very scary and unsettling and
awesome.
I think it's overlooked. Underrated.
I love your ratings, dude. I love those. Those are good. I like those.
Thank you.
Us through season 1. We're on to bigger and better things. We got a lot of great stuff planned and 2 directors coming up that Aaron's going to talk about right now.
Actually, I want to hear you. I want you to go
first. I'm going to talk about it right now. So I wasn't sure what I wanted to do for my next one. And then I watched a movie called Total Recall, which made me appreciate Arnold Schwarzenegger as an actor. So I'm excited to announce it. My director for season 2 will be Paul Verhoeven. If I pronounce that last name wrong, too damn bad. It was tough, honestly, to pick films because this director, while he makes some really good films such as Robocop and Starship Troopers, he's also known for erotic, romantic thrillers, and most of his early work was all in German. So we'll be moving in to that.
I'm sorry.
You're good. So I'm excited to announce that my 5 films for the series will be Robocop, Total Recall, Hollow Man, Starship Troopers, and a 2016 thriller, Ellie, or L.
Oh, okay. I've seen 3 of these films, and good news is I love all 3 of them.
Me too. I've seen Robocop, Total Recall, and Starship Troopers.
Same.
Nice. Yep. So then Hollow Man and L will be different for us. That's awesome. Good.
There's a lot to chew on. Similarly, I was torn between 2 directors. We might not be smart enough to do Kubrick yet, so I had to pick between 2. And the other one was a horror director that I don't want to reveal because we'll probably do it next season, but I wanted to venture out of the genre a bit. So, and it's kind of nice because we kind of flopped. A lot of yours are kind of these sci-fi action things, and mine are going to be a little bit more dramedy oriented. I'm watching a lot of them recently, and I want to analyze them. It's the Coen Brothers,
Okay, nice.
and it's hard to pick 5 films. They've got a lot that they are known for. What are you hoping for? One in particular?
Yeah.
All right, let's see if I got it. So my 5 films are based on films that I love, and also based on films that I haven't seen yet or want to analyze. So without further ado, my 5 films are their debut, Blood Simple, Raising Arizona, a personal favorite of mine, Big Lebowski.
Hey, baby.
You got it. You gotta have. I mean, how can you?
Hey, man, careful. There's a beverage over here.
We got to do it. We got to do it. It is, I think, when I don't know what I want to eat, cereal always scratches that itch. And when I don't know what I want to watch, Big Lebowski is the same way. It's
one of my favorite films, top 5 films, definitely for me. So I'm excited. Let's go.
That'll be fun. And then after that, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, which I have not seen.
Oh.
And have been holding on to for a minute. And lastly, No Country for Old Men.
Nice. I have seen 3 of those as well. So I'm excited.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. It sounds like we're in for a great season. I'm so excited to rewatch some of these with you and to watch them for the first time with you. And I hope people are enjoying the journey so far. I would love to know what everyone's favorite what was your favorite film we watched? What was your favorite, analysis that we gave? And in the future, what kind of films or directors do you want to see us cover?
Yeah. Thank you so much, everybody that's come along this journey. Thank you for all the shares. Thank you for all the likes. Thank you for just getting us out there, because we're going to keep on going. We love doing this show. We talk about it every single week, so we're going to keep on going. And through your love and support by sharing us or getting us more and more subscribers, hey, it's only going to get bigger and better, my friends.
That's enough of that. Then make sure that you are tuning in to Shooting the Bit. It's our brand new weekly podcast. We film it right after we film this, and it is a way for us to catch up with each other and also come up with bits and things that we may or may not write about in the future. But it's a lot of fun, and we've got a big announcement coming up on this next episode. So make sure that you join us for that. As Jimmy said, thank you so much for being a part of this journey. We can't wait to start work on season 2. And we're excited. So the first film we should mention, I guess. Then the first film is going to be, what's the first Paul Verhoeven film?
The Robocop.
All right. Next episode, we will be watching Robocop. So get ready for that.
And also, too, if you haven't liked and subscribed to this video, do it for my birthday present. Thank you.
There we go. Happy birthday, Lo. To everyone else, we're signing off. See you next time at the movies.